Hey, everyone that's joined. We'll just give it a couple more minutes to see if we get a few more people on board before we get underway. So we'll just give it another minute or so. Also, I've misplaced my work phone, so if anyone messages me, if they can't get on, I'm out of luck. It's somewhere in the room. It's not important.
Sure, they'll try and figure it out. Like Facebook message you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Mm.
I have to do this sitting in the coldest room in my house and my hands are getting cold. All right, well, yeah, let's get underway. I don't want to hold everyone up all night. So thanks everyone for joining us tonight. I will introduce you guys to Jenna Dunn, a HR specialist with SVS Consulting, and I will hand it over to Jenna. Thank you for your time this evening, and you can go ahead with your presentation. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Really nice to be here. It's quite cool to be able to be invited to your homes and let me talk to you about recruitment and how to best support guests in building your teams. So I've got a lot to get through tonight. Generally, I like these to be a bit interactive. So if you feel free to write some questions in the chat. So then hopefully I can get through them. I will just put the chat on so then I can make sure that I see your questions as they come through. So we're here tonight to talk
just
about
one more thing, Jenna. Alternatively, if you don't feel like typing your message in, there's the raise your hand button at the top. And if you select that, then it kind of highlights your bubble and I can turn your mic on so then you can speak directly to Jenna if you'd like as well.
Yeah, maybe even better. Great. So just a little bit about me. I was born and bred in Te Awamutu, so I'm based in rural, I guess, Waikato. Can't say that I was on a farm, but definitely have been around a number of farms in my lifetime. So I did a Bachelor of Management Studies once I left school at Waikato University, and I majored in Human Resources and Strategic Management. So that was a 4-year degree back then. And then, so currently where I'm at is with SVS Consulting. I work with the amazing Michelle De Beer, who's been in the HR kind of space industry for a number of years now. And yeah, I've been here for 9 years and just absolutely love helping small to medium to large size businesses with any of their HR kind of needs. I'm generalist HR. So recruitment is one of those, I guess, strands or umbrellas that I could support organizations with, and that's the topic of tonight's, but yeah, we can help with any kind of HR needs. So that's me. I will move on. So today's session is a bit of a step-by-step guide to finding and keeping the right people. So I've got some prepared topics, which is, planning your workforce needs, defining your role, like the job description, how to attract the right candidates, interviewing and selection, reference checks, onboarding. Got a little bit of a caveat in there for the 90-day trial periods, just making sure that, you either using them and using them well. Induction onboarding, keeping the good ones, avoiding common pitfalls, and some final takeaways in my top tips. So that's generally what I'm going to talk about tonight. But once again, feel free to write in your thoughts or comments or questions or anything on those. I tend to talk quite a bit, so I'll try to keep myself on task so then we can all get out of here at 8 o'clock. So yeah, once again, we've kind of talked about that, about your questions in the chat. So why does getting recruitment right matter? I was brainstorming this because I think that this is actually really important, and it's important for us to think about, because these are the reasons why I think that it's definitely should be, a well-planned process right from the start. So number one is good people equals better productivity. If you've got skilled, motivated workers, that's going to keep your business running smoothly. It's going to, your milking's on time, your fences are fixed, your stock is healthy, and your overall farm's performance should be, humming really. Number two, farming is hands-on, day in and day out. It's not 9 to 5. There's quite a lot to do. Early mornings, variable weather. It's actually hard work. So getting the right person, it means less hand-holding, fewer mistakes, and you need someone who's going to stick it out with the tough stuff so you can do all those other important jobs. It also saves time and money. So I'm sure everyone's got a poor hire story. I know that, mistakes, they can cost money, stock losses, pasture damage, machinery misuse, tension, lots of conflict in the workplace. That's what we do quite a lot of, actually. There's lots of people who, the miscommunication or grievances, conflict that can happen. So you really want to, I guess, hone in on the right person who's going to be the right fit for the rest of the team. So this leads on to your team culture, because that really matters. Sometimes you're just a small team and a bad fit can really upset the balance. So you want someone that's going to boost morale, cooperation, and loyalty. Number 5 is retention starts with recruitment. So when you find someone who suits your farm, you want to try and keep them for longer. So you don't want to keep with the churn, the recruitment churn, because that's kind of a bit stressful and causes you money loss. So if you've got some good people, you want to hold on to them. And then I kind of talk about some retention strategies towards the end of this presentation. And also, I was thinking that you are building the future of ag in New Zealand. So if you are hiring well, you are training the next generation of farmers and owners. So investing people in the future of the ag industry. So those are all the reasons why I think that getting the recruitment right is really beneficial. So number 1, I was thinking, right, what do you need to do for best practice? And that's starting from the beginning. So what are your workforce needs? Obviously, you've got 2 to 3, maybe more positions that your farm needs to, be in place for you to be running successfully. So what does this look like? So do you have seasonal needs? Do you have long-term labor needs? What are other roles? Are they more management leadership roles, or are they just you need someone to come in and milk? You've got lots of different types of employment in New Zealand. So there's full-time, part-time, there's permanent, there's casual, fixed term, or even seasonal. So it's kind of thinking about what is it that you actually need these people to do, because your farm will have a unique operational need that could be different to other farms. So you will look at the scale of your operations, your production goals, your specific farm activities, to kind of determine the type of employee that you need. So understanding these aspects of the recruitment process will definitely help you. We've kind of talked about the different types of the agreements. If you struggle, so some people put an employee on a casual, but they're actually fixed term, or casual, they're actually permanent part-time, so there's a few things that you need to kind of work through, and understanding what those different types of agreements are could be very helpful. They might start off as a casual and then kind of morph into that part-time or permanent, and you don't really, notice that's happened. And then over time, it's actually they've become a permanent employee. So that's just one thing that you want to watch out for, and just making sure that you are getting those right. There's also a bit of a what we call a grow your own strategy. So if you're planning your workforce needs and you're finding that you're not getting the outcome or the type of technical skills that you need, but So the grow your own strategy is around employing a junior and then growing them into, morphing them into, and training them into what you need. So that's a bit of a strategy that you can have if there's a bit of a skill shortage. Right. So once you've kind of worked out your needs, it's defining the role and putting this into very quite clear and practical, I guess, wording. There's no point in trying to verbally describe to a candidate exactly what you want and then not having it in writing, because, you know, if they're not providing what you were wanting and you don't have it in writing, then it's a very difficult space to be in. So I think if you can jot down the key skills and duties requirements of the role into kind of a job description format, and then that will flow onto the basis of what your advert could look like as well. So I've kind of written here some key duties. What do you need help with? And then it was, do they require a qualification for that? Do they need technical skills for that? What does that actually look like? And then also, you know, experience. Do you want someone that is fresh or has 1 year's experience, or someone that needs, you know, 10 years plus experience, like a herd manager, you know, exactly defining what you need. And if you clearly have them articulated, then that's going to have a really good understanding from the candidate's point of view as well. Are there any must-haves? So driver's license, drug tests, visa requirements. Are you an accredited employer or not? You know, what are the actual hours of work? Is this going to be, you know, just weekend work? Or is this full-time or part-time? Is it just mornings, just afternoons, seasonal work? You know, so just kind of working all that out. And then I've also got in here what the farm culture and values, what makes your farm great? What type of employer are you? Do you, you know, what do you value? Are you trying to be your vision and your mission type sentiments as well? So having that outlined in your job description, it's a bit of a flow-on effect, because then it goes into your advert, and then that's kind of what you are leading with your recruitment efforts as well. And if that's right from the beginning, this is our values, and you recruited on it, and then if you're not living our values, then you can kind of pull that back into, it's in the job description, it was in the advert, that was as part of our recruitment process. Now I'm just trying to understand, you know, if things are wobbly, let's get you back on track, and these are our values. So if they've got them clearly defined, the candidate will understand their expectations and how their contributions, you know, go towards the smooth running of the farm, and it will mean a better fit. So we've assessed your needs, and now we've defined actually what the role is. You also need to write an advert. So attracting the right candidate. So this is the advert. We try to make our adverts nice and, you know, I guess inviting to the typical person that you are wanting to attract. So the advert should have the farm environment, the herd size, who you are as an employer, definitely listing the daily tasks, detailing the qualifications that you need, the experience, you know, required 4 years of milking experience, describing if the role, you know, what we've talked about is part-time, permanent, contract, fixed term, describing the type of person that you are wanting, is kind of all the soft skills that you need, that you're looking for. So are they a team player? Are they reliable? Are they junior or senior? Comfortable working alone or with others? You know, so these are the type of things that you can start thinking about, the soft skills. Collaborative, happy to sing along with my singing in the milk shed, or listen to this type of radio station or podcasts, or, you know, there's quite a number of things of the soft skills of the type of person that you are looking for. So I think you could write that in the advert to attract the right candidate. And and your contact details. So, I mean, we generally list with Seek, quite a lot of our roles with Seek, but it might be Trade Me, or it might be, you know, magazine, local magazine. So you really need to kind of think about the type of media. Where are these candidates, the right candidates? Where are they going to be? Where are they going to be looking? How do I reach them? I mean, social media is an amazing platform that's kind of happened, and we get quite a lot of reach from that. But you've got, fast farm source jobs, Trade Me jobs, Facebook groups. I know there's community pages out there. They're constantly looking for people who can milk on the weekends, or employees, people, you know, within the community that can come out and help them. So I think I'm not too sure exactly, you know, what's going to be best for you. I think maybe if you really networking, word of mouth, those are great. If you are wanting to build your employer brand and have people wanting to come and work for you, probably your referrals. So if you've got employees that are currently working for you that can go out and say, hey, we've got a position going at my farm. We're awesome. These are the things that we do, and we've got the benefits provided to us, and this is the great working conditions. You know, that's going to speak volumes in terms of attracting other brilliant employees. So this is kind of part of your retention strategy as well. So definitely having a look for referrals, word of mouth, networking. Those are all kind of great avenues. There was always the traditional one of advertising in local newspapers. I think, you know, that's probably a bit dead and gone in the water these days, but it may be, depending on where you live in New Zealand, that might still be the best way of reaching an audience. I'm just thinking what else is there. Something else that we need to kind of consider is how are you going to collate all these candidates that you're getting? So say you've put an advert out for farmhand and you've got 10 applications. What's the best way of making sure that you've acknowledged all these 10 applications, you've kind of sifted through their application details, so their CV, are they suitable, are they not? How are you going to make sure that you capture? And because what we do is every candidate that applies for a role, they automatically get sent out a notification. So this is an email just outlining what the process is going to look like for them. So we say, thank you for your application. Our shortlisting process normally takes around 3 weeks. That could be a week or 2 weeks, whatever that looks like for you. We'll be looking at candidates throughout that process. And if you're shortlisted, you'll hear from someone in our HR team. If you are not shortlisted at the end of the 3 weeks, then you will receive a notification by email saying that you have been unsuccessful. So that's something that you kind of should keep in mind, is that candidate care aspect, because potentially they might not be the right candidate then, but you never know what's going to happen in the future. So making sure that you are, I guess, having a really robust recruitment process is going to, you know, they might go down the road and say, hey, you know, this farmer here, Farmer A, is, you know, he got back to me. He was really kind, had a really good acknowledgement email. I didn't get the role, but I was very impressed with their communication and how they kept me, you know, informed with what was happening. So it's definitely something that I would consider that you reflect on, and we've got some templates if you wanted me to forward them through to you. So it's the acknowledgement teammates, and also, you know, if they were unsuccessful, or even templates for when we invite them in for an interview. We've got a bit of a template for that as well. So please do sing out if you need anything like that. Just looking at the chat. Oh, right. So interviewing and selection. I normally like to ask the the people that I'm talking to is if they've got, or if they know of any questions, illegal questions that they shouldn't ask. And it's just a bit of a funny thing, but I don't know if you wanted to jot something down there, we can kind of talk about it. But there's definitely some that are probably not relevant to ask, but we'll talk through that one later. I was also interested to know is how many applications would you genuinely receive? Is it a 5 or could it be 50 or 100? So I kind of wanted to know that as well. And do you phone screen first? So you've received 10, let's say 10 applications. How do you kind of work through who's going to be shortlisted or not? You would be looking through the application, the CV, and then how do you perform your shortlisting? So what we normally do, and I can talk about that, is we would phone screen them. So we've got a range of questions that so I generally say, hi, it's Jenna here from SVS Consulting. Are you just interested in asking more about your acknowledging your application for XYZ job? Just wanted to ask you a few questions. And my first one is, what is your motivation for applying for this role? So that kind of, I guess, teases out quite a bit of, okay, so why are they motivated for it? Is it more the role itself? Is it because you're a great employer? Or is it just because mum and dad were telling me that I needed to apply? It could be a range of things. And I kind of find that you're finding out what the motivation to apply for is quite telling. And I always take note of how did they come across? So they came across engaging, or did it sound like they've just woken up from a nap, or disengaged, or really bubbly and energetic, or were they just a bit ho-hum, so I kind of take notice of how did they come across. Were they answering my questions really well, or was it kind of like getting blood out of a stone? Because and then that kind of paints a bit of a picture too. Did they answer first time I rang? Did I have to ring a couple of times? Did I text message? So all of those type of communication with that candidate, I definitely take note of. And, I would say to the client, this is how they came across. So I guess once we've done your shortlisting, you've asked your phone screening questions, you've kind of, in that phone screening, I ask around their salary expectations and their notice period, when can they start, kind of any ad hoc concerns that I've got from reviewing their CV. So then we've kind of got to the interview stage. So I've rung them back up to coordinate an interview. So saying, John, are you able to come in for an interview with blah, blah, blah on Tuesday, the 6th of May at 1 o'clock, and it would be at this time. Are you available at that time? So then they'll say yes. And then I will always follow that up with written confirmation. So that's just an email form just saying, further to our conversation, here are the details of your interview with the client, with the farmer, and it would be the date, the time, location, all the particular, who's going to be part of the panel. So that's another big thing, is if you can, if it's possible, to involve someone else in that recruitment panel. That's not always going to be the case. But I think that if you can have someone else, maybe it's the farmer and the herd manager or whoever else, if you can have someone else as part of that recruitment panel, that'd be great. If not, that's not the end of the world. But scheduling interviews verbally and doing it in writing. What we also find is when we are interviewing people and setting up that written email confirmation, we send them an application form. So I don't know if farmers have this, but it's definitely something that we could, look at and help you craft. But it's around kind of asking for their recent employment history, so that's for 3, what their qualifications are, their contact details, and some information around, their sick leave, if they've had, medical conditions that could have an impact on the role. as well as some criminal kind of questions and, driver's license questions. This kind of covers all that. So if you need anything like that, feel free to reach out. And then we kind of have that all on board when we're at the interview. So let's just think we have now got to the interview stage, and we're wanting to try and keep it as relaxed as possible. I know interviews are always unnatural, and so sometimes when you're doing it online as well, it's never, it's a bit nerve-wracking for the candidate. So I try to keep it as relaxed as possible. Always offer, a cup of tea or some water. And, I say it's an opportunity for both parties to kind of get to know each other, because at work you're there for quite a number of hours, and, you want to make sure that it's the right fit for both parties. So trying to keep the interview conversational and relaxed as possible while you're asking all your relevant questions. So I've kind of got in some example questions. Tell me about a time you solved a problem on the job. What interests you about working on a farm? Have you ever had a situation where you didn't get along with a team member, and how did you handle that? Or what would you do if? So those type of questions. And I always write down. I know it's a bit of an art, talking, thinking, and writing down their answers at the same time, but it definitely helps, particularly if you've got, 5 interviews for the same job. It helps to kind of rate those candidates and reflect on all the gems that they tell you at that point in time, because sometimes, you just need to jot it down, because otherwise you won't remember it, because we're all quite busy. So did anyone have any questions about what you can't ask? I think Hayley is typing something, so I'll just see.
Well, you can't ask people's marital status.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. Your religion, political beliefs,
whether or not they're planning on having children.
Yep. So there's a number of kind of, discriminatory human rights types questions that, you should stay away from. So, it's Hayley. Oh, no. She's still typing. Right, we might have to move on. So, let's now pretend that we have conducted all our interviews. During a phone interview, recently started asking for what they look for. Oh, yes, great. Yep, that's always a good, what they find. So that's another question that I ask. Think of your favorite or your best manager that you got along with, and tell me about why that relationship was so successful. So that's definitely a great question, Hayley. So yeah, it kind of gives you a bit of an insight of the manager style that they like, because surely they would have had a great manager and probably a not so great manager, and what's the difference between the two, and what are they looking for in a manager. So that's definitely a good question. Thank you. So now we're at the reference checking stage. So hopefully everyone does reference checks. I've definitely had some great, what I would call stellar interviews with candidates that I thought would be perfect, and then got to the reference checking stage, and the references came back as quite opposite to what you thought. So some people can, talk a really good talk, and you think that they would be fantastic. So that's why this reference checking is so, so vital and important for you to do. And I say, even always call at least a minimum of 1. Our preference is to call 3, but, that's not always going to happen. But definitely try and call at least 1. And I would make sure that it's from a relevant source. So we always say to call a reference that has, previously managed them. So it's someone, someone that they've reported into would be ideal. Sometimes they write down colleagues, people that they've worked with. And so, that's kind of not the best reference that you can get. Yes, it is a good reference, but, preference would be someone that they've actually, that has managed them, so a manager. So you would want to definitely confirm that they are reliable, because your farm relies on people showing up, right? So you want to make sure that they can actually be there at their required hours, at the time frames. Are they reliable? Do they show up on a consistent basis too? So consistency. I kind of always ask my references, so it's professionalism in the workplace. Did they, when it's got annual leave, do they request the annual leave off in the required time frame? You might have a 14-day notice period, that they've got to get their annual leave in by. So do they abide by that? Or is it quite last minute? What is their, sick leave? Is it over and above the entitlements that they've been given? Or, what does that actually look like? So I always ask, what's their general attitude, their training ability, how would you rate their performance? There's generally someone else that has worked in a similar position to them. So you could be like, how could you rate them to similar other roles? There's lots of different things in terms of that. We've got a template that we can also provide to you as well, a reference checking template. And it's kind of just around, there's another question of, what are they naturally good at? What are their strengths? What are their development areas? Technical skills, conflict, how they get on with their team, with other colleagues. How do they respond to receiving feedback? There's a health and safety question in there. Are they kind of compliant in that area? Or are there any concerns around that? Right through to, would you re-employ them again? That's a really big, massive telling, would they re-employ them? And it's always kind of interesting to hear their answers on that one. So generally, what you're kind of wanting to know is, how are they, their performance, and you want to check their attitude, check their skills. Skills can be taught, but attitude can't. So I think that's a big one. If they're willing and they're engaging, they've tried their best, and maybe the farm wasn't right for them, but it might be right, like your farm might be the right place for them. So attitude. Just think what else.
There's another question there from Hayley for you.
Can we do a phone interview and ask if we can ring references before we do on-farm interview? Ties up manager and owner for 90 minutes with each on-farm interview. Wondering if we could do reference check after phone interview. Good question. Yeah, I suppose. So in terms of getting permission from the candidate, if you've got permission to ring their references, they sometimes don't provide their references right up. So if you phone interview and you say, yep, I think this could be a good match, are you comfortable that I check your references? Who are your references? What are their contact details? Are you okay that I ring them? Yeah, I guess that would be fine. Just trying to think if there's like any questions. I'm assuming, Hayley, that you have, because you would only do that genuinely if you think that they are a good match. So I'm assuming that you're thinking that they are after the phone interview. So otherwise, then we normally do it the other way around. So interview the candidate and then do the reference checking, because we want to make sure that the candidate is the right person. So hopefully I've answered your question there. Yes, so yeah, you could do, but with their permission.
I got another question for you. Doing it from if someone puts you down as a reference, is there anything around like what you can and cannot say from that end?
Right. So a candidate has given Amelia as the reference, and I've rung you to talk about this other person. And you're wondering what you can and cannot say. So generally we say that our references, so if you're providing a reference, we say that they're confidential, but and it wouldn't go back to that candidate. But I mean, there is an element of, it's personal information about them that they could ask for that. In my career, I've never had anyone asking for the reference checks. So it's hardly unlikely. But in terms of what you can and can't say, so you don't want anything that's going to trip you up, but you also want to be trustworthy and give the best, the best reference that you can. So, I mean, if there were, I always talk about the strengths of the candidate. So maybe they're reliable, but they just didn't really have the technical skills or didn't really have the experience that you needed, or whatever that looks like. If there was like a bit of a confidential process that happened where there was an exit package or a personal grievance or something like that, that's all confidential. So you can't actually disclose any of the content of those details. So if that's kind of what you were thinking, Amelia, I mean, you can, in our reference check, there is a question of, did you have any concerns? And did you raise those concerns with the candidate formally or informally? And then depending on the answer from that, so if they say, yes, there was some concerns that was raised formally, then we could be like, oh, are you part of any confidential process that you cannot disclose? So they can either say yes or I cannot say that. So is that kind of answering your question, Amelia?
Yep. Another one for you is, how can employers ensure they're conducting thorough reference checks?
Yeah. Well, I think our template is pretty thorough. So always can provide that for you. But I guess it's that question of, would you re-employ them? Would you re-employ that person? Is a really telling, depending on what their answer is whether or not, that reference is good or not. But I think if you talk about, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, what were they doing in the role? Did they find it any challenging concerns with training or concerns that you needed to approach with them? And then, yeah, I think if you've asked any concerns and was that approached with them, and then would you re-employ them? If you've got those two standard questions, you should technically get what you need from them. But if you've got our whole template, which I can provide, then that's a very thorough way of getting all the answers that you need. Yeah. Cool. Right. So we've done our reference checking, and now we're at the offer of employment stage. So this is a really exciting part. I kind of feel like I'm Santa at this point in time, because I just love giving, connecting people, matching people up, and it's a nice relationship there. So offering someone an employment is just kind of like a bit of a prize at the end of all your hard work. So, and I mean, the candidate's hard work as well as the employer's hard work, it's quite nice to be able to match people. So now, when we're at offer of employment stage, I genuinely always like to ring them up and have that verbal conversation with them. I know some people would prefer to put it in email. So it's just whatever way that suits you. But we say congratulations. I would love to offer you the position. Just need to work through some the details. So it would be the working hours, depending on if you're on a roster or not, or if it's 9 to 5, whatever that looks like. I always talk about the remuneration. So what does that package look like? So this is going to be completely different to every situation. Where there's a base salary, there could be, accommodation that's part of it, benefits like firewood or meat, or a laptop or a phone, so all that kind of remuneration package should be disclosed, I guess, at the verbal in the email, definitely in the employment agreement. And the start date, you kind of want to negotiate on terms of when that is. Is it immediately? Is it after the 4-week notice period? What does that actually look like? So having that in your employment agreement. And 90-day trial period clause. So I've got a bit of the next few slides because I wanted to talk about this in a bit more detail. So if your employment agreement is going to include a 90-day trial period clause, I always verbally say it as in the offer when I'm offering them employment. If you're not verbally doing it, definitely do it in the email. It should be in your letter of offer as well, just because they've got to be able to have acknowledgement that a 90-day trial period clause is going to be included in their employment agreement. So then I've got send the letter of offer and individual employment agreement to the candidate. There's a few different ways that you can do that. If you just want to print it out and they can come and pick it up. If you want to carry it out to them, if you want to PDF it and put it in an email and send it to the candidate, they could either DocuSign it. It just depends on how do you want to get that to the candidate. And any way possible in any shape or form is the right way. You need to do it so then they've got time to review it as well. So ideally, you don't want to pressure them into starting. So I've kind of got make sure the candidate signs and returns the paperwork before they commence employment. So in an ideal world, if this is not achievable, then I would recommend pushing the start date back, so then they can make sure that they've been able to kind of get a legal advice or getting someone else to kind of check over the paperwork. And then I've got release any unsuccessful candidates here. So if there is people that you haven't taken through the journey, so you haven't shortlisted them, or we do, if they're not shortlisted or phone screened, then we send them an email. If they have been shortlisted, phone screened, we've spoken to them, then we verbally call them back and say that they've been unsuccessful on this one. And it's just really nice to kind of close the loop, because otherwise people just don't really know where they're at. Have you found someone or not? Why wasn't I shortlisted or not? That they kind of like to ask some questions, some feedback questions. So my next few slides are how to include a 90-day trial period clause. So number one is you need to have a valid clause included in your employment agreement. I would definitely recommend either getting some legal advice or talking to us, or going onto the MB website. They might have something in there. So making sure that the clause is valid, that the employee is made aware that the trial period clause is included in the offer, and that they have the right to seek advice. So that's very important. The employment agreement must be agreed in writing. So before the employee commences work, it must have a valid notice period, and it can only apply to new employees. So you can't have a previous employee coming back to work for you and you're putting this trial period clause in. It's only applicable to new employees. So I just want to stress that, because sometimes that has been called out with some employers. So just making sure that that is covered for you. So I've got some common 90-day trial pitfalls. So there was an employee that was informed of the 90-day trial period after accepting a verbal or written offer. So that would mean that it's now invalid, and you cannot use it. So the employee was not advised that they were entitled to seek independent advice. The employer gave notice outside of the 90 days. So that would deem it invalid, or the employer was a previous employee. So just want to make sure that, those things are covered. So I've got some tips for you. Schedule a review 1 month prior to the trial end date. So however you do that in your diary, write it, just get someone else to kind of notify you. It's really important to make sure that you are keeping on top of that, because you don't want to, if you go outside of the 90-day trial period, then it's invalid. So written notice, I've kind of stressed that enough. It's in your employment agreement. It's also got to be in your cover letter, your letter of offer, sorry, and then also in your verbal or in your email when you offer their employment to them. Employers, you don't have to give a reason. So you can utilize termination of terminate under the 90-day trial period clause. Employees still would want to know. So, I mean, in terms of you need to act in good faith and not be misleading as well. So I would be 90 days, that's enough time for employees to kind of go through a bit of an induction process. There may be some niggles, some concerns that maybe as an employer you would have raised with them already. So if there is, unreliability, that's definitely one, one concern that you might raise with them. And then so in terms of if they've constantly been off and they should be on their best behavior in this first 90 days, you would say, this farm job really needs someone that's quite reliable. But, once again, if you are giving a reason, make sure it's short because you can't discriminate. So you just want to make sure that you are kind of, if it is a reason, that you are giving a reason that's kind of within that realm of what you can say. Right. So we're on to induction and onboarding. So you've given them the offer, they've accepted, happy days, everyone's signed, and now it comes to their start date. So what you want to do is have a really good think around what does onboarding look like? What would a successful induction look like? So we kind of think about are there different departments? This is kind of a more of a business. Are there different departments that they could be buddied up with to learn the different roles? So it could be, making sure that they get a warm welcome. They definitely need to be covered with your, company policies, health and safety. What does that look like? Your farm rules, your daily routines. You could assign them a buddy. If that's the best thing to do, or they can just kind of dovetail with you. But you want to regularly check on them during the first few weeks, is just to make sure, that they know what they're doing, they feel comfortable in doing it, and if they've got any questions, they can answer it, because it's nothing worse than having someone come on board and kind of not really know where they can direct their questions to. So I definitely think if you can give them you be ready for their first day, you give them a proper welcome, you cover all the key information, health and safety. There's also onboarding paperwork such as KiwiSaver, tax code information, to get them onto the payroll. So there's a number of things that you need to kind of work through in your first week to make sure that they are welcomed, and, a good start builds loyalty and confidence. Right. So then we're up to keeping the good ones. So retention strategies. Because you've done all this work to get here. That's quite a lot of work, right? To get to this point. Quite a lot of time and effort that you've put into. So you definitely want to keep the good ones. So that's, giving and receiving regular feedback and communication. Kind of like what Hayley said before. How do you, what's the best manager that you've had? So that's definitely been, it's communication is a two-way street. So being upfront with them if something is not right. So you want to deal with little things as they arise. You don't want to have to deal with something that happened 10 days ago, 3 months down the track. So if there's anything that, that you need to raise with them, deal with it while it's right there in the moment, because you want to deal with those issues when they're small. You don't want them to kind of accumulate moss like a rolling stone, So number 2, offer development, training, new responsibilities. You want to teach them new skills. If they are eager to learn, they're willing, they're actually really good at what they're doing, you want to make sure that you're keeping them engaged. Recognize good work. Even a simple thank you goes a long way. We've done quite a big culture survey on how do people like to be appreciated, and that was the number 1. A simple thank you, an acknowledgement from my manager of my efforts. That was just that's all that not all that they want, but it's definitely the number 1. Can we have that? Respecting work-life balance, understanding family and life commitments. Number 5 is build a good culture. Celebrate the wins and deal with the conflict early. And then number 6, plan ahead. If you have a star worker, talk about their future before someone else does, because you want to try and keep them. Right, so I was thinking around avoiding common pitfalls. So that's hiring in a rush, being unclear about expectations, not checking references. I definitely think if there's anything you need to do that, and then failing to support the new workers. So if you have a really good think around, what do you need help with on the farm, defining the job description, and then working through the advert, and then working through, what those shortlisting, what your traits, your soft skills are, your technical skills are, you're getting them there. You've done a lot of work, so you don't want to be hiring in a rush or being flip-flopping or, just hiring the wrong candidate. And then I've got some final takeaways. Recruitment is more than just filling a gap. It's investing in your team. Complete your recruitment process in a timely manner. Don't leave them waiting. You'll lose your good ones in that. And then the ones that, don't hear from you, they'll always be thinking and wondering what happened with their application. So a little structure goes a long way. Good people equals good farming. Build your reputation as a good employer. This will result in candidates being easy to find. And I've kind of got a bit of a plug. If you need further assistance, SVS can certainly help, in terms of if you did have a bad hire. I'm definitely there to help you with that. Hopefully not, after you've been listening to me. And then I was thinking about my top tips. So my top tip is to find out the worst thing about the person before you hire them. Then decide whether you want to manage that. As humans, we're optimistic and we think she'll be right in recruitment, but we need to think about what could go wrong. So if you can find out the worst thing about that person before you hire them, then you're definitely more informed in whether or not you can manage that. And then I've got number 2, hire for attitude and train for skill. In farming, reliability with work ethic and willingness to learn often matter more than experience alone. So a keen, respectful worker who shows up on time and asks good questions can become one of your best team members with the right support. So that's me. Hopefully I've covered everything, but definitely happy to kind of work through your questions if you've got any more.
So I'll throw a couple more questions at you.
Okay.
So a lot of farming systems are different. Is there like a comparison for the size of farm that people have to kind of compare to the number of staff that they require?
What kind of system are you referring to? Like
so like 500 cows versus 1,000 cows, both system 4.
I don't know, Amelia. Would there be like a human resource question in terms of like that? Because that's more of a, how many people do you need for those type of roles? Like, because your process would still be the same in terms of, so is there like more number of roles that you need for that one, or are you just kind of asking more technical questions?
I guess it's a bit more technical then for you. So just being like, is like from a recruitment point of view, should people be thinking about like how much one person can do in a day? And so like actually thinking about it in the long term, that this is going to take them a certain amount of time and I need 5 people to be able to do that, versus on a smaller farm, 3 people can do that. If that makes
so
sense.
that's just like assessing your needs type question. Yeah, so I guess you would work through what your workload is. And then so you're saying I need to recruit for 5 people at this one time, and then that's going to increase the number of reference checks that I need to make. I guess I don't really know how to answer that one in terms of what assessing your needs are. What we normally do is we kind of whiteboard it. And we say, okay, so just write down, what is it that you actually need? Is it finance? Is it, maybe stock control? Is it, how many people, what you need? And then we kind of circle, right, whose responsibility is what? So we just would whiteboard that and try to work out. It would be really difficult to kind of put a formula on that. Sorry.
From like, and this is possibly getting a little bit more technical for you as well, but salary versus wage.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what's the best one to use?
Yeah. So like I've got friends that all of their staff are on a wage.
Right.
And then like the majority of farmers out there do it on a salary. Do you feel like there would be more retention one versus the other, or that there's a better system, like one system is better than the other? I don't know.
I guess in terms of from the employer point of view, the salary, because it's a consistent amount, is probably more financially easier to manage. Whereas you just also got to make sure that you're meeting your minimum wage thresholds with that as well. Because if you're on a salary and you're meant to work 40 hours, but you actually work 60 hours, what does that actually look like for the minimum wage thresholds? So you've kind of got to keep that in mind. Versus an hourly rate, you're actually getting paid for what hours you work. So there's a monitoring aspect for that. And I mean, can that fluctuate, or is it normally quite consistent? So I mean, there's pros and cons to each. There's less administration for people on salary, but that's normally if you've got a consistent workload. What you could do is you could look at annually. So I've had some workplaces that they're more busy in the winter and less in the summer, so on an annual basis that kind of works out. But I mean, the candidate would also be able to tell you what their preference would be as well. There might be something that they trying to save for a bank, save money to purchase a home, and they might need a certain amount of, it might look better for them from the salary point of view rather than hourly rate point of view or something like that. I'm not too sure. But definitely pros and cons to each. But yeah, I'd just be mindful of making sure that the minimum wage is actually being paid.
Yep. So Haley's just put a question in. How do you suggest a farmer manages balance? All right. I have my glasses on. How do you suggest a farm manager balances staff needs versus owner wants, or ideas to remedy if there is an imbalance to keep everyone happy?
Balance staff needs versus owners wants. So I guess that would be looking back at assessing your requirements. So if the staff needs, so is this time off, or is this more meat or accommodation, or the owner's wants, that could be your vision, your mission, your values. And then if you're striving towards that, then you want people to be on board with that. I guess with every kind of relationship, there is a bit of a to and froing and a balance that is needed there. And everyone's motivations are different. So some people might want more money, so other people might want time off with their families. So it's a really hard one to. Maybe she's going to articulate some more of that question. But owner wants jobs done, farm tidy, etc., but trying to keep staff at certain hours. I guess that would just be kind of looking at your rainy day jobs, and if there is anything that you could do, getting the team to kind of work on okay, so you're not going to get the whole farm tidy, but is there sections of the farm that you can work on to get it to a point, and then you move to a different one and you can't find extra stuff? Yeah, I mean, the balance of making sure that you've got the right ratios too is definitely there. And that's going to be so different for every farmer as well. I don't know the exact formula for that, but perhaps working with your accountant or as to what what that could look like. But I mean, that's your casuals. You've got casuals that you can fall on. They can just come in and smash out some type of work if you want to try and keep the farm tidy in a certain area. People coming in for carving. And there's lots of different kind of inventive ways you could get students to come in to help. Emily? It's a bit difficult when there's a shortage. Any suggestions around successfully employing overseas staff? Yeah, the immigration piece is definitely a bit of an area that has been, it's had a lot of changes to it. So I guess like with farmers, I'm not exactly 100% sure, but you normally would need to be an accredited employer to be able to employ people from overseas. I know there's been a big Filipino community that's coming over and working on the farm, so that's definitely an area that you could look into, but there's going to be some caveats there. So one, you need to be an accredited employer to do that. If you're employing people coming on from overseas, there's minimum rates that you have to pay, and you also have to provide them with a whole bunch of I guess introductory to New Zealand type of information, helping them get an ID number and a lot of kind of admin. Some people also have, if they're made redundant, then you've got to have to try and export them back and help with that financial remedies there. So there's quite a lot that you really need to delve into in terms of employing people from overseas. I guess if they're in New Zealand and they've got a visa, then yeah, you do need to be an accredited employer to be able to get them to employ them. So definitely a lot easier than getting them from overseas. But yeah, there's just quite a lot of legislation around that.
There is a lot of overseas employer companies out there that actually are really good at helping with that, and they'll even find you the staff and they'll help you go through those processes, which is really good. There's a few in the South Island that I know of, so there's a lot out there.
Finding an actual immigration consultant is probably the best way to support your business with that one. What questions can I ask to determine if someone is teachable even though their attitude at interview is good? That's your reference checking. So I always ask around what was their job? How did they find training? Can they are they good at picking up new things? So that could be new technology or understanding. And then it could be that would be teased out in their concerns. So maybe there's a question of how did you find that they were looking at mastitis? So they might this is an area that they needed to develop on. So it's around if someone is teachable even though the attitude and interview is good. So yeah, that's reference checking. I think that's the only way, and asking them, are you willing to do this? Are you willing to do that? And see what they are, and show me, can you give me an example of in your interview questions?
So I guess something that a lot of farmers actually struggle with is because of the size of farms and things like that, they don't tend to have like an HR department. It tends to just be the owner, maybe his partner or their partner, and that. So is there like a good way for them to go through disciplinary situations? So if they do have a staff member that they're now having issues with, that's it's past that 90 days, they've been there for 6 months now, and they've been late for milking, or continue driving their motorbike without their helmet on, or something like that. Like, these are common things that tend to be like, is there a way that they can process that?
Absolutely, yeah. And then that always comes down to your process. So if it's the first time, or I always say have an informal conversation with them, so just raising it with them in an informal capacity, and then just seeing if they're picking their socks up and actually doing, listening to a reasonable request, because health and safety, that's quite important. You want them to be going home to their family at the end of the day, but running late a couple of times. Hey, I've noticed that you've run late on these days. Is there any reason for that? So just kind of, I find nipping it in the bud sooner rather than later, because otherwise, you don't want that to be a continual theme. So acknowledgement. I've noticed you've come in late a couple of times. Can we just have a bit of a catch up about that? So once you've done your kind of informal catch ups with them and it's still ongoing, that's when you need to kick into a more formal process. So what that actually looks like, and it's quite a bit of a robust process. So you need to raise some concerns with the employee, and that's in writing. So there's a letter that you need to put your concerns in writing. You need to say the consequences of it. So is this like an outcome? Could be a letter of expectation? Could it be a first warning? Could it be a final warning? Could it actually be serious enough that it's termination of employment? They need to have an opportunity to bring a support person. It's like a natural justice process. So if there's a complaint, you need to give them the complaints and then they can cite it. You need to pretty much give them all of the information so then they can prepare to provide an explanation. So that's a letter. Give them two days or like a bit of a time frame to prepare, and then you come to the meeting and then you talk about it at the meeting. So there's a few items that you need to be quite upfront with, which is detailed in your letter, but you need to, we're here to talk about these concerns today. I'm open-minded. I don't know where this is going to go. We haven't determined an outcome yet. Your feedback that you provide is going to help us decide what the next steps are. You've had the opportunity to bring a support person. There's a potential consequences. It could be deemed serious misconduct or just misconduct, depending on whatever it is. You get them to provide an explanation. You've got to then reflect on that good faith before you make any decisions. And then your decision is you might need to do some more investigation, or it could be a letter of expectation, or whatever that could look like. You need to then put the outcome in a letter and then sit down with them. If it's like a warning or a final warning, then you need to consult on that as well. So consult is that's the advice that we always give. And yeah, if you've kind of got a process of where you need some more help with that, I would always ask for help. So we're here, we can guide you through that process. But yeah, it's definitely something that you want to get right. I know the government hasn't come out yet, but in terms of having to have the process 100% right, I know with the Labour, if it wasn't quite right, if there was a piece missing in that process, then the employer could be fined for that. I know that National are looking into it to say even if it's not 100% right, it's still okay, depending on what the rest of the process looks like. So there's a bit of a shift that's going to be happening in that space.
So then if you flip it and look at it from like an employee's point of view, so if they're in a situation where they don't feel comfortable or and they don't know how to discuss this with their boss, or their boss is the one that's making them feel uncomfortable or something like that, where can they go, or how can they proceed without like having to quit their job? It's not that easy to find jobs out there, and especially farm jobs, and if it's in the middle of the season or something like that. Like, is there a way for them to kind of navigate those situations?
Yeah, I always think like communication is key in these processes, and there's a number of ways that I guess as an employee you could tackle that. So if there was another manager that they could go to and felt comfortable going to that manager, do you feel comfortable in raising it in person, but you've got a support person there that's helping you, that's kind of guiding you through it, or the support person raises the concerns with the manager on the person's behalf, or writing in an email? If that's less confrontational, you can kind of say, these are things that I do want to bring up, but I just don't really know how to bring up. Writing it as an email and then having a conversation. But I do really think there's got to be a conversation at some point, however that looks like, and wanting to do it in a supportive. I feel like employers shouldn't be scary to communicate with, but I do realize that some conversations are really difficult to have. And so it's just kind of working out what's the best way for that employee to have that conversation, and whether or not it's in person, in writing, over the phone, someone else does it for them. There's a whole range of, and they could, MB, they've got some kind of support and help. I'm sure during NZ would probably have some as well. That's how to navigate that conversation. But I mean, if you're going in it looking to resolve it, that you want to try and resolve it, then that will speak volumes. I guess the alternative is if you don't want to bring it up, then you've always got the option of resigning. But yeah, I always just like try to have that conversation with your employer. The best thing.
So then I just got one more question. You talk about communication. Completely agree. Do you know of any, because I know like being on farms really hard. You're all like, especially those big farms, someone's at one end of the farm, someone's at the other end, and sometimes reception on farms isn't the greatest. So do you know of any like apps or programs that farmers could use to improve communication? Like I know like a lot of people use WhatsApp and just have like WhatsApp groups. But do you know of any that are like really good for this kind of situation that are more so focused for it?
To be honest, nothing's really like, we use Teams quite a lot. But WhatsApp, kind of using that at the moment. Facebook Messenger. But I don't think I've got anything in a farming context that's come past me. Sorry.
Yeah, just thought I'd ask.
Email, text message. Yeah, nothing that springs to mind.
Because I know there was one a while ago, but I don't think it really took off. And it was you created a group and you could put in and mark off tasks. So like people could go in and like actually tick the box. So it would remove the task out of, but I cannot remember what it was called. And it was just one of the farmers that I dealt with in the South Island was using it with his stuff, and he said it was really good, and he showed me it, but I cannot remember what it was. So I was like, oh, maybe you know what it was. So I was like, I'll ask the question.
It's not like Monday.
I might be. Yeah, like it's just those kinds of things. I think like WhatsApp and that are really good, especially like when you've got multiple staff. Like if it's just you and a farm assistant or you and a 2AC or something, it's quite easy to, you're only ringing one person, but when you've got 4 staff and they might all be off at different times, it can be a lot to try and navigate as like a manager or a share milker that's trying to oversee people. So, there you go. Haley put in Gmail tasks is good.
And just logins with the same email. Oh, okay.
That's a good idea.
All right.
Yeah. It's just trying to have something where it's all accumulated together that everyone has access to. So that's a good option. Thanks, Haley.
Google Sheets, yeah. It definitely is a bit of a task trying to, when you've got multiple rosters or part-timers, that work on the weekends and not so much during the week. So trying to keep everyone in the same like communicative, get them all up to date. It's definitely a bit of a task, and what works for the right owner will be different. Surely there's a communal place, so like they all come to the kitchen or the
normally there's the whiteboard in the cow shed that's got all the stuff that needs to be done on it, but it's whether or not your staff are actually checking that. And theoretically it's like, can you look at this every morning when you come in, see if there's anything new on there, see if your name is next to anything. But and
we've always got our phones on us, right? So it's probably the best way of making sure that it's getting there.
Yeah. So anyway, so that was my random list of questions that I had that I thought I'd throw at you. So if no one else has got any other questions, I think we'll wrap it up.
Thanks, Haley. No, I appreciate you being here.
I love that everyone got involved tonight and threw questions out and kind of threw explanations and things like that. It's greatly appreciated. I love when people get involved, which people don't normally get involved. So thank you guys for taking part. Thank you so much, Jenna. Your presentation was great. I think we all learned a lot tonight. So I really appreciate everything that you've put through to us. And as Jenna said, if anyone wants to get any more information, feel free to get in contact with SVS Consulting, or if you don't know who to contact, flip me a text or a message or something, and I can pass you on Jenna's contact details or anything like that as well. Yes, thank you, Jenna. That was awesome.
Yeah, no worries. Had fun.
Cool.
Hopefully everyone's got some takeaways.
Yeah, I think they do. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. Let you guys all go on with the rest of your night. And yeah. So thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.